The silence is the first thing you notice. Not an absence of sound, but a presence. It is a physical weight in the grand archives of Ethelberg, a pressure against your eardrums forged from millennia of unspoken words and the settled dust of forgotten arguments. You stand in the heart of it, a place few are ever permitted to see, the sanctorum of precedent. Above you, shelves carved from petrified shadow would soar into an artificial twilight. Their surfaces a dense tapestry of leather spines, clay tablets, and data slates bound in lead. They are not merely shelves, they are pillars holding up the very concept of civilization. The air, thick and cool, carries the scent of ages, a complex perfume of dried ink, decaying parchment, the faint, metallic tang of silverfish poison, and the ozone hum of the climate regulators. It's a smell you've come to associate with truth, or at least its most permanent record. A single, colossal beam of synthesized daylight pierces the gloom from a high oculus, a perfect cylinder of luminescence that catches the galaxy of dust motes in a slow, eternal dance. It illuminates a circle on the floor of polished obsidian, but does little to push back the oppressive shadows that cling to the far corners of the chamber. You run a gloved finger along the spine of a codex, thick as your thigh. The leather is cool and brittle, cracking silently under the slight pressure. The Maritime Disputes of the Sunken Cities, Volume IX. 1,000 pages of rulings on salvage, rights for civilizations that no longer exist. This is your world, a labyrinth of what was, a foundation for what is. You are an archivist investigator, a delver into the past to solve the riddles of the present, a detective whose beat is history itself. Your current obsession, the case you've privately dubbed Thornbrook Manor for its thorny, labyrinthine nature, is not found in these grand, public-facing tomes. It lives in the digital ether, a recent judgment from the city's great arbiter, the Lex Machina. You close your eyes, calling the case file to the internal interface linked to the optic nerves behind your retina. The text scrolls behind your eyelids, stark and emotionless. Case 734 Delta. Guild of Artificers versus Kalen Thorne, independent horologist. The charge, patent infringement on a self-winding chronometer escapement. The evidence, meticulously documented, cross-referenced, and verified by 3 separate analysis engines. The verdict, delivered by the Lex Machina itself, was absolute. Kalen Thorne was found liable. His workshop, his life's work, seized as restitution. His name, professionally, was erased. It is a perfect ruling. The logic is a flawless, crystalline structure. Every statute is correctly cited, every piece of evidence correctly weighed. And yet, it feels profoundly, fundamentally wrong. It's a dissonance that hums in your bones, a sour note in the perfect symphony of the law. This is your secret, the tool you trust above all others, an intuition, a gut feeling about the intent behind people's actions. And every fiber of your being screams that Kalen Thorne was not a thief, but a victim. The Lex Machina, for all its perfect logic, had been led to a perfect lie. You dismiss the file, the afterimage of the text fading from your vision. The silence of the sanctorum rushes back in, heavier than before. The system is perfect. Its impartiality is the bedrock of Ethelberg. To question, it is to question the foundations of the city itself. But your stubbornness, the flaw that has both saved you and nearly destroyed you in the past, will not let it go. You refuse to accept this reality, this perfect, elegant injustice. A subtle vibration shivers up through the soles of your worn leather boots. It's a specific pattern, a summons. Veiler. You turn from the silent shelves and walk towards the edge of the illuminated circle, your footsteps echoing unnaturally in the vast space. A section of the obsidian floor depresses under your weight, and with a hiss of ancient pneumatics, a spiral staircase of wrought iron descends from the shadows below, beckoning you into the city's hidden depths. The air changes as you descend. The dry, scholarly scent of the archives gives way to a cool, damp earthiness, the smell of deep stone, roots, and things that have never seen the sun. The chill seeps into your coat, a physical manifestation of the secrets this city is built upon. The staircase ends on a narrow catwalk suspended over a cavernous space. This is the subarchive, the utility stratum, a world away from the polished order above. Here, thick bundles of data conduits, glowing with a soft blue light, run like arteries along the damp stone walls. You find him where you always do, tending his gardens. Valar Harrow is not human. He is a chitinous weaver, one of the city's original inhabitants, a species that built the foundations Ethelberg now rests upon. He stands over 7 feet tall, his body a segmented carapace of iridescent, midnight blue chitin that clicks softly with his movements. 2 of his 4 slender, multi-jointed arms are delicately tending a latticework of glowing fungal tendrils that pulse with gentle, golden light. These tendrils are the city's organic network, a biological data transfer system that predates the fiber optic conduits by centuries. You felt my call. His voice resonates, not from a mouth, but from the vibrations of plates on his thorax. The sound is like stones rubbing together, yet carries a surprising gentleness. I did, you reply, your voice sounding rough and loud in the quiet cavern. You stop beside him, the glow of the tendrils illuminating the concern etched into his multifaceted eyes. What have you found? He gestures with a delicate, 3-fingered hand towards a section of the lattice. You lean closer, where the other strands pulse with a vibrant, healthy light. These are dim, a sickly, jaundiced yellow. A fine, black dust coats their surface like soot. The decay spreads, Valar says, the resonant hum of his voice filled with a disquiet that mirrors your own. Slowly, but with persistence, it is a corruption, a blight at the root of the city's consciousness. Its source remains occluded. You reach out, your gloved finger hovering just above one of the afflicted tendrils. You feel a faint, unhealthy warmth radiating from it. This decay, this physical sickness in the city's organic underpinnings, started around the same time you began noticing these perfectly unjust rulings from the Lex Machina. You don't believe in coincidences. The unwritten accords, you murmur, more to yourself than to him. Valar's multifaceted eyes fix on you. You speak the name of a shadow that's growing longer you reply. The unwritten accords. A conspiracy theory to some, a boogeyman to others. A rumored clandestine agreement between Ethelberg's major trade guilds. A pact to control markets, eliminate competition, and rewrite the rules of commerce in their favor, all while operating in the blind spots of the Lex Machina. Caelan Thorne was not the first independent artisan to be crushed by a larger guild on a technicality. He was just the latest. Valor retracts his hand from the blighted tendril. He turns his full attention to you, his posture conveying a deep gravity. The weavers are the city's memory, and he is their most trusted historian. He has given you his trust, his knowledge, his access to this hidden world. It is an investment, a life savings of faith in your quest, and the weight of that trust settles on your shoulders. The patterns you seek are not in the high archives, he says. The formal laws are a cage of light, but the true beast moves in the darkness between the bars. The accords operate through proxies, through shell corporations and manufactured disputes. The Lex Machina sees only the puppets, not the puppeteers. Then I need to find the strings, you say, your resolve hardening. The thorn case is a thread. If I pull on it, the whole tapestry might unravel. Be cautious, Valor warns, his voice a low thrum. To pull a thread is to alert the weaver. The guilds are ancient, powerful. They have roots that run deeper than this chamber. He extends a slender arm and points towards a dark, dripping archway at the far end of the cavern. The water reclamation tunnels connect to the old merchant sector. There are whispers there, falsified shipping manifests, ghost ledgers. The decay's signature is strongest in that direction. A flow of illicit resources, perhaps. A poison into the city's veins. You nod, your mind already tracing the path, visualizing the map of the city's underbelly. This is the start. Not in the pristine halls of justice, but down here, in the damp and the dark, where the city's true business is done. Thank you, Valor, you say, the words feeling inadequate. Your goal and mine are reflections of the same truth, he hums. A sickness must be named before it can be cured. Find the source of this legal decay. I will find the source of the biological. You turn towards the archway, the chilling dampness already seeping through your boots. The path forward is uncertain, filled with shadows and whispers. But for the first time in weeks, you feel a flicker of something other than frustration. You have a lead, a direction. You are no longer just an archivist reading about the past. You are stepping into the stream of the present, ready to change its course. The weight of Valor's trust, the memory of Caelan Thorne's ruined life, and the stubborn refusal to accept a perfect lie. They are the fuel that drives you down into the cold, waiting darkness. The reclamation tunnels are a different kind of labyrinth. Where the archives are a maze of ordered knowledge, this is a warren of forgotten function. The air is thick with the smell of wet stone, algae, and the faint, acrid scent of industrial runoff. The only light comes from the faint bioluminescence of mosses, clinging to the curved, sweating walls, casting long, distorted shadows that seem to writhe at the edge of your vision. Water drips with a maddeningly irregular rhythm, each drop echoing down the long, cylindrical corridor. You move with a practiced silence, your hand resting on the compact kinetic stunner holstered at your hip. The information from Valor was specific, a particular nexus where the manifests for the Oakerhand Mercantile were processed, far from the prying eyes of the Port Authority. The Oakerhand was the guild that had absorbed Caelan Thorne's workshop and assets. They were the start of the thread. After nearly an hour of navigating the disorienting, branching tunnels, you find it. A heavy, rust-streaked pressure door, sealed with a modern electronic lock. A faint hum emanates from it, a sign of power in a place that should be dead. This is it. You pull a thin data spike from your coat pocket and slide it into the lock's diagnostic port. The interface flickers to life in your retinal display, lines of code scrolling past. It's a standard guild encryption, tough but not unbreakable. Your fingers dance over the holographic interface projected from your wrist cuff, dismantling the digital fortress brick by brick. You're not just an archivist, you're a locksmith of secrets. With a final, satisfying click, the code breaks. The heavy door groans open with a deep, metallic sigh. The room beyond is a stark contrast to the decaying tunnel. It's brightly lit by sterile white light strips, clean and functional. Racks of data servers line one wall, their indicator lights blinking in a silent, steady rhythm. In the center of the room, a large hollow table displays a rotating schematic of the city's cargo distribution network, and standing before it is a woman. She turns as the door opens, her movements economical and precise. She is tall, with dark hair pulled back in a severe, functional knot. Her face is sharp angles and cool composure, her eyes the color of storm clouds. She wears the severe gray uniform of a civic requisitioner, but hers is immaculately tailored, the insignia on her collar denoting a high rank. She doesn't look surprised or alarmed to see you. She looks expectant. "Archivist investigator," she says, her voice as crisp and cool as her appearance. "You are further off your designated path than regulations permit." "Funny," you reply, stepping fully into the room, letting the heavy door hiss shut behind you. "I was about to say the same thing about you, requisitioner. You keep your tone level, but your intuition is screaming. This woman is a predator, coiled and ready. This isn't exactly a resource depot. A flicker of something, not quite a smile, but an acknowledgement of the point, crosses her lips. I am a leaner forgeborn, kinetic requisitioner. My duties often require me to ensure the smooth flow of resources through less conventional channels. The Oakerhand Mercantile is a key partner in maintaining the city's logistical stability." "Logistical stability," you echo, letting a note of disbelief color your voice. You gesture towards the server racks. "Or market manipulation. I've been reviewing the supply chains. The Oakerhand seems to have a miraculous ability to predict resource shortages, buying low and holding until the price skyrockets. Almost as if they were creating the shortages themselves." Alina's expression doesn't change, but you feel a subtle shift in the room's atmosphere. The air crackles with unspoken tension. "Ethelberg is on a knife's edge," she says, her voice dropping slightly, becoming more intense. Our off-world supply lines are fracturing. The resource quotas are becoming impossible to meet. Without careful management, this city will starve. The guilds, under my guidance, are ensuring that vital materials are directed where they are most needed. It is a necessary measure for the greater good. This is the conflict laid bare. She calls it careful management. You call it extortion. She sees a city to be saved. You see individuals like Kaelin Thorne being sacrificed. The greater good doesn't seem to have included a master clockmaker who was bankrupted on a trumped-up patent charge, so his workshop could be seized for its inventory of rare alloys. You counter, watching her face for a reaction. You get one. A flicker of irritation in her gray eyes. The Lex Machina judged his case. The ruling was legally sound. His personal misfortune is regrettable, but irrelevant to the survival of the city. The law is not a tool to be used, requisitioner. It's a foundation to be respected, you say, stepping closer. You're using the system's own logic to mask your crimes. You and the other guild masters. The unwritten accords. You say the name to see its effect. Aliner's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. You are chasing phantoms, Archivist, and in doing so, you risk upsetting a very delicate balance. The work I am doing is keeping this city from collapsing into chaos. I suggest you return to your dusty books and leave matters of civic survival to those equipped to handle them. Her tone is a clear dismissal, a final warning. But your stubbornness is a fire in your belly. You can't let it go. You know you're right. Your intuition, that quiet, certain voice, tells you that her calm exterior hides a will of iron and a complete disregard for the principles you've dedicated your life to. I can't do that, you say softly. Someone has to speak for the dead, even the professionally dead, like Kaelin Thorne. Aliner Forgeborn holds your gaze for a long moment. The silence stretches, thick with a shared understanding. You are now on opposite sides of a line she has drawn. A pity, she says, and her voice is laced with genuine, cold regret. You could have been useful. Her hand moves in a blur, not for a weapon, but for a control panel on the hollow table. She taps a sequence of commands, and a section of the wall slides open behind her, revealing a dark, waiting tunnel. This conversation is over, she states. An alarm begins to blare, a harsh, percussive sound that echoes painfully in the confined space. Red lights flash, painting the room in bloody strokes. I have resource quotas to fulfill. I recommend you find your way back to the surface before the tunnel scrubbers activate. She gives you one last, dismissive look before turning and disappearing into the darkness. The panel slides shut behind her, leaving you alone with the screaming alarm. Tunnel scrubbers. A high-energy plasma discharge designed to sterilize the conduits. You have maybe 2 minutes before this room and the tunnel you came from are incinerated. You race to the server racks, jamming your data spike into the primary console. You don't have time to download everything, but you can get a snapshot, a core sample of their operations. Data streams into your device, encrypted, fragmented, but it's something. It's proof. The alarm's pitch rises. The air begins to hum with a massive power buildup. 30 seconds. You rip the data spike out, the download incomplete but substantial, and sprint for the door. You wrench it open and plunge back into the dripping darkness of the reclamation tunnels, the sound of the alarm abruptly cut off as the heavy door seals behind you. You run, blindly, desperately, away from the hum that is growing louder and louder behind you. Then, a flash of brilliant white light fills the corridor, and the air is superheated, a concussive wave of energy blasting you off your feet. You hit the slimy stone floor hard, the impact knocking the wind from your lungs. The roar is deafening, a physical blow. Then silence, save for the patter of condensing water and the frantic thumping of your own heart. You push yourself up, bruised and disoriented. You look back. The corridor behind you is scorched black, the mosses vaporized, the very stone cracked from the intense heat. You were close, too close. Eleanor Forgeborn wasn't just warning you off. She was trying to erase you. The stakes have just been raised from a professional dispute to a matter of life and death. And now, you have a piece of her puzzle, burning like a hot coal in your pocket. The thread is in your hand, and you have no choice but to pull. The days that follow are a blur of paranoia and obsession. You don't go back to your sparse apartment in the upper spires. You don't check in with the archives. You become a ghost, living in the city's forgotten spaces. You move through the utility corridors and abandoned service tunnels, a shadow in a world of shadows, the data spike, your only companion. Valor brings you nutrient paste and filtered water, his silent presence a comfort in the oppressive solitude. You spend your time decrypting the data you stole from Eleanor's hub. It's a nightmare of shell corporations, laundered funds, and nested ownership structures designed to be an impenetrable legal fortress. It's the architecture of the unwritten accords. The ochre hand was just one brick. You uncover links to the Spinners Guild, the Crystal Cartel, the Iron Forgers, a web of collusion that encompasses nearly every major economic player in Ethelberg. They are strangling the city's free market, creating artificial scarcity to drive up prices and consolidate their power. Eleanor isn't just managing a crisis, she's profiting from it. But the data is circumstantial. It shows correlation, not causation. It's enough to get you killed, as you now know, but not enough to convince the Lex Machina, which requires irrefutable, direct proof. You need a key, a Rosetta Stone to translate this labyrinth of lies into a coherent accusation. Your research in the stolen data keeps leading you to one recurring, heavily redacted reference, Project Aegis. The context is always about foundational principles, about overriding existing statutes. It's not a commercial project. It sounds theoretical, philosophical. You bring this to Valor during one of his visits to your cramped hideout, a dusty maintenance node tucked behind a decommissioned ventilation fan. Aegis, he hums, the sound resonating in the small space. He processes the word for a moment, his multifaceted eyes distant, accessing the weaver's deep oral histories. The name is ancient, not a project, a thing, a place, the Aegis Codex. You lean forward, your heart quickening. A codex, like a book. More, Valor vibrates. A tome of first principles. It does not contain laws, but the reason for laws, the logic of justice itself. The stories say it was used to program the foundational ethics of the lex machina long ago. It is said that with it, one can unravel any legal argument, no matter how perfectly constructed, by exposing its flawed premises. It is a key of ultimate truth. The gravity of his words settles over you. This is it. This is the weapon you need. A tool that could cut through the Gordian knot of the Accord's legal defenses. Where is it, you ask, your voice barely a whisper? Hidden, protected, Vaylor says. After the lex machina was fully sentient, the creators feared the codex could be used to manipulate it. They secreted it away in a place the lex machina cannot see. A blind spot in its omnipresent awareness. A chamber shielded from all forms of electronic surveillance, built using pre-electronic principles. In the grand archives, you realize aloud, it would have to be the ultimate book hidden in the ultimate library, deep in the foundations, Vaylor confirms. In the oldest section, the one built by my ancestors, the Bramblewood, as the first human archivists called it, for its tangled architecture. The name sends a chill down your spine. Your case, your private obsession, Thornbrook Manor, Brook, Bramblewood. It was a clue, a breadcrumb trail left by whoever filed the original case, pointing you towards the truth from the very beginning. Your subconscious had picked up on it. You now have a target, but getting to it will be impossible. The foundational levels are sealed, accessible only by the senior archivists. And you are, for all intents and purposes, a fugitive. You need help. You need someone on the inside. Your mind immediately goes to Master Archivist Thuron. He was your mentor, a man whose devotion to the archives and the purity of the law was legendary. He was old, steeped in tradition, and had always been wary of the lex machina's absolute authority, believing it lacked wisdom. He had encouraged your unconventional investigation methods in the past. If anyone would understand the danger of the unwritten accords, it would be him. This is where your flaw, your stubborn refusal to accept unpleasant realities, takes root. You believe in Thuron. You believe in his integrity. In your mind, he is an incorruptible pillar of the old guard, a natural ally against the new corruption represented by a leaner Forgeborn. You refuse to consider the possibility that the rot could have reached so high, that the decay Vaylor sees in his tendrils might have a counterpart in the very heart of the institution you serve. Getting a message to him is risky. You use an old, abandoned pneumatic tube system, a relic of a bygone era, to send a coded note to his private study. You request a meeting, citing a discovery of foundational level importance. You sign it with a code name only he would know. The reply comes within the hour. A simple, unsigned message. Tonight, midnight, the Orrery of Fates. Come alone. The Orrery of Fates is a vast, circular chamber in the upper levels of the archives, containing a massive, intricate clockwork model of the known star systems. It's seldom used, quiet, and easily defensible. It's the perfect place for a clandestine meeting. As midnight approaches, you make your way through the silent, echoing halls of the archives. The familiar weight of the place settles on you, but tonight it feels different, menacing. Every shadow seems to hold a threat. You reach the orrery, a cavernous room dominated by the silent, brass and iron celestial model. Spheres of polished marble and obsidian hang suspended on a web of complex gears, all motionless in the dim light. A figure stands in the center of the room, silhouetted against the star chart projected on the far wall. It's Thuron. He is, as you remember, tall, gaunt, with a mane of white hair and a face carved with the lines of decades spent in scholarly pursuit. "You came," he says, his voice a dry rustle of old paper. "I was concerned. You have been absent." "I had to be," you reply, stepping out of the shadows. "I've uncovered something, Master Thuron. A conspiracy that reaches the highest levels of the city's guilds. They call it the unwritten accords. They're manipulating the lex machina." You lay it all out for him. The thorn case, the meeting with a leaner Forgeborn, the data from the servers, the decay in Valer's network, and finally, the Aegis Codex. You tell him you believe it's hidden in the Bramblewood foundations and that you need his help to get to it. He listens patiently, his expression unreadable. When you finish, he is silent for a long time, his gaze fixed on the motionless planets of the orrery. "You have always been my most promising student," he says finally, his voice soft with what you mistake for pride. "So diligent, so relentless, so naive." A cold dread begins to pool in your stomach. His tone is wrong. Everything is wrong. "You speak of a disease," Thuron continues, turning to face you fully. His eyes, usually warm and filled with academic curiosity, are as cold and hard as obsidian. But you fail to understand the nature of the patient. Ethelberg is dying. It requires aggressive treatment. The old laws are a luxury we can no longer afford. Your intuition, which you had so foolishly ignored in your blind faith in him, screams a klaxon warning in your mind. "What are you saying?" you whisper, though you already know the answer. "The unwritten accords are not a conspiracy," he says, his voice devoid of all warmth. "They are a necessity, a mechanism for survival, carefully managed to prevent widespread panic and collapse. A system I helped design. The betrayal is a physical blow, stealing the air from your lungs. Thuron, your mentor, the man you trusted implicitly, he wasn't just compromised. He was an architect of the very corruption you were fighting. Your stubborn refusal to see it, to even consider it, had led you right into the lion's den." "How could you?" you managed to say, the words tasting like ash. "You, who taught me the sanctity of the law. The law must serve the people, not the other way around," he retorts, a flicker of the old professorial fire in his eyes. "And the people need stability more than they need the fiction of perfect justice for one insignificant clockmaker." From the shadows behind the great orrery, another figure emerges. A leaner Forgeborn. She holds a kinetic rifle, its sleek, metallic frame gleaming in the dim light. She looks at you not with triumph, but with a kind of weary disappointment. "I told you to let it go," she says. "Master Thuron assured me you were intelligent. Your persistence has become a liability." You back away slowly, your hand moving towards your stunner. But you know it's useless. You are trapped. "The Aegis Codex," you say to Thuron, your mind racing. "That's what this is about. You know where it is. A leaner wants it to legitimize the Accords, to make them the new law. The Codex is a tool of immense power, Thuron says calmly. In the wrong hands, it could destroy the delicate balance we have built. In our hands, it can solidify it. It can rewrite the city's operating principles to match the reality of our times. It will be the foundation of a new, more pragmatic order. This is your lowest point. Betrayed, cornered, your ideals shattered by the one man you thought would share them. Your flaw has led you here, to this dead end. You see now that your fight was never just against the faceless guilds or a ruthless requisitioner. It was against a philosophy of despair, a willingness to sacrifice freedom for security, justice for order. And you say, your voice shaking with a cold fury, will be the high priest of this new order. Thuron offers a sad, thin smile. I am merely an archivist, ensuring the proper records are kept. Now, you have a choice. Give us the data you stole, and help us retrieve the Codex. Your knowledge of the archives would be invaluable. Or, you can be filed away as another regrettable but necessary loss. The choice is no choice at all. In that moment, something inside you hardens, crystallizes. The naive student is gone, burned away by the acid of betrayal. What's left is colder, sharper, and far more dangerous. You will not be a tool for their new world order. You will not be a footnote in their history. I choose a third option, you say. You don't draw your weapon. Instead, you slam your hand down on the emergency release for the Ori's primary drive gear. A massive, greased cog the size of a millstone. With a groaning shriek of tortured metal, the ancient mechanism, designed to be held in place by powerful electromagnets, is released. The immense weight of the celestial model, no longer counterbalanced, begins to move. The entire structure lurches, planets of marble and iron swinging wildly on their brass arms. Chaos erupts. Alina raises her rifle, but the shifting ground makes aiming impossible. Thuron stumbles back, his face a mask of shock. You use the momentary confusion to act. You dive behind a bank of control consoles as a moon of polished jade swings past your head, shattering against a stone pillar. You are no longer the hunted. You are the disruption. You are the ghost in their perfect machine. You scramble into the service ducts as the Ori of Fates tears itself apart. The sound of grinding gears and shattering worlds a fitting soundtrack for the destruction of your faith. You have escaped, but you are more alone than ever. The betrayal has changed you. There is no one left to trust but yourself and the weaver in the darkness below. And now, it is a race to the Aegis Codex, to the very soul of Ethelberg. Your world shrinks to the cold, damp dark. The betrayal has scoured you clean of any remaining trust in the system. Thuron and Alina not only want the Aegis Codex to legitimize their shadow government, they now have the ultimate insider, its gatekeeper, to help them find it. You have only your wits, the incomplete data, and Valor. It's a race you are destined to lose. But the setback, the raw wound of Thuron's treason, has forged a new resolve in you. The stubbornness that was once a flaw has been honed into a weapon. You no longer seek to expose the unwritten accords to the Lex Machina, you seek to destroy them. The system is not to be reasoned with, it is to be overcome. You meet Valor in the deepest part of his territory, a cavern where the glowing tendrils grow thick and bright, a silent, beautiful rejoinder to the city's decay. You tell him everything. He listens, his chitinous form still, the vibrations of his voice a low, somber hum when you finish. The betrayal of a teacher is a deep wound, he resonates. It severs the past from the future. The past is a liability, you say, your voice hard. The future is what we're fighting for. They're going for the Codex. Thuron knows the way. We can't beat them there. Perhaps not by the known paths, Valor counters. He extends a slender limb, tapping a section of the cavern wall that appears solid. With a soft click, a panel of disguised rock recedes, revealing a map carved into the stone, illuminated by the same internal light as the tendrils. It is a map of the Archive's foundations, but unlike any you have ever seen. It shows not just corridors and chambers, but power conduits, geothermal vents, and ancient water channels. It is the Weaver's map. The Bramblewood was our creation, Valor explains. We know its secrets, its heart. There's a way, a path not walked by men for 1,000 years, a path they will not anticipate. As you study the map, piecing together this new, secret geography, you uncover a terrible truth from the stolen data. It's a contingency plan, codenamed Cascadia. If the unwritten accords were ever threatened with exposure, the guilds had a scorched earth protocol. They would trigger a cascade of system failures, transport, power, water filtration, and pin the blame on a phantom terrorist threat, using the ensuing chaos to declare a state of emergency and seize total control. Aliner's resource crisis wasn't just a problem she was managing. It was a weapon she was aiming. The fate of the world, or at least your world, the city of Ethelberg, is truly at stake. They wouldn't just rewrite the law. They would burn the city down to rule over its ashes. This presents you with the most difficult choice of your life. Valor's secret path will get you to the Codex. Once there, you could potentially use its foundational logic to expose the Accords. But it's a gamble. Thuron and Aliner are already on their way. The alternative is more direct. Your stolen data contains the access keys to the Cascadia protocol. You could trigger a small part of it yourself, disrupt a single power grid, for instance. It would create a minor crisis, a distraction that would force Aliner, as the city's requisitioner, to abandon her hunt for the Codex to manage the fallout. It would buy you time, but the cost is real. A power outage in the lower sectors would mean life support failures in the Medici wards, food spoilage in the communal kitchens. People, innocent people, would suffer, possibly die. There is no clear right answer. Do you risk losing everything in a race for the perfect solution? Or do you inflict a lesser harm to prevent a greater one? It's a cold, utilitarian calculus that feels sickeningly like the philosophy of Aliner and Thuron. You stare at the code on your data slate, your finger hovering over the activation sequence. You think of Kaelin Thorn, of the nameless, faceless citizens who would pay the price for your distraction. Your intuition, that quiet inner voice, offers no guidance here. This is a choice beyond instinct. It's a moral crossroads. The direct path often carves the deepest scars. Valor hums softly, as if sensing the war within you. You look from the data slate to the weaver's map on the wall. Scars. The city is already covered in them. You will not add another. You will not become the thing you are fighting. No, you say, closing the Cascadia file. We don't burn the village to save it. We do it your way. We race them. We trust in the secret paths. We trust that the right way is the only way. It feels like a fool's choice, an idealistic gamble against a pragmatic certainty. But it is your choice. The transformation from the betrayal is complete. You are no longer just fighting their methods. You are fighting for the principle that the ends can never justify the means. The journey through the secret ways is an ordeal. You squeeze through claustrophobic maintenance shafts, slick with ancient slime, navigate treacherous ledges over echoing subterranean chasms, and wade through forgotten waterways where eyeless creatures scatter from your light. Valor moves with an eerie, silent grace, a creature in his natural element, guiding you through the city's literal subconscious. As you travel, Valor's own quest converges with yours. He finds the nexus of the biological decay, a place where an unregulated chemical byproduct of the iron forger's secret, off-ledger refineries, is being piped into the weaver's grottos. It's a slow, steady poison, a physical manifestation of the Accord's corruption, killing the city from its very roots. The fight is no longer abstract. Finally, after what feels like days in the suffocating darkness, you arrive. A wall of solid, unadorned obsidian blocks your path. Valor places his 4 hands on its surface in a specific pattern. For a moment, nothing happens. Then, with a sound like the world's first breath, a section of the wall dissolves into a cascade of shimmering particles, revealing the chamber beyond. The chamber is a perfect sphere, its walls crafted from a seamless, milky white material that seems to drink the light from your torch. The air is cold, still, and utterly pure. There is no dust, no decay, no sound. It is a place outside of time. In the absolute center of the sphere, resting on a simple pedestal of black stone, is a book, the Aegis Codex. It is bound in something that looks like hardened dragonhide, shimmering with a faint, internal iridescence. Its pages, visible at the edge, are not paper but thin sheets of spun glass that seem to capture and hold the light. As you approach, you feel an immense gravity, not of mass, but of consequence. It's as if the very concept of order, of right and wrong, is radiating from it. You reach out a trembling hand and touch its cover. The surface is warm, and a low, resonant hum travels up your arm, vibrating in your very bones. This is the source code of justice, the ultimate truth, and that's when you hear the grinding of stone behind you. You turn, your heart sinking. At the far side of the chamber, a more conventional entrance, a massive stone door, is rolling aside. Standing there, flanked by 2 guild enforcers in heavy armor, are a leaner Forgeborn and Master Archivist Thuron. They have won the race. It seems your knowledge of the Archive's secrets was not as exclusive as you believed, Archivist, Alina says, her voice flat. But her eyes are fixed on the codex with a hungry, possessive light. The enforcers raise their kinetic rifles, the barrels aimed squarely at your chest. Thuron looks at the codex with an expression of pure reverence. Magnificent, he breathes, the foundation stone, at last. He then looks at you, a flicker of what might be pity in his eyes. It didn't have to end this way. You should have joined us. You are too late, Aliner states, taking a step into the chamber. The book is ours. The city is ours. Surrender the codex. You stand between them and the pedestal, your body a frail shield for the most powerful concept in existence. You can't fight them. You can't run. All you have is the codex itself. Your hand rests on its cover, and in a moment of desperate inspiration, you open it. The moment your fingers touch the spun glass pages, the world dissolves. It is not reading. It is an infusion. Principles, not words, flow into you. The cosmic logic of equity, fairness, retribution, and mercy. You understand, in a flash of blinding insight, why a law must exist, what makes a judgment just. The very structure of reality seems to reform around these core tenets. The chamber vanishes. Aliner, Thuron, the guards, they are all gone. You are floating in a sea of pure concept, a silent, swirling cosmos of ideas. You are seeing the source code of your civilization. You see the logic of the lex machina, a beautiful, intricate, but rigid crystalline structure. And you see the unwritten accords, a cancerous, parasitic growth, twisting that logic, feeding upon it, using its own rules to protect itself. And then you see Aliner, not the woman, but the principle she represents. The will to power, the drive to impose order at any cost. You see her goal to secure resources for the city. It seems reasonable, necessary, even. You see your own goal to expose the truth, to bring clarity. It seems righteous. But the codex shows you the conflict is not about resources or truth. It's about a fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of law. She sees it as a tool. You see it as a truth. The world snaps back into focus. You are in the chamber, your hand on the open page of the codex. Barely a second has passed. Aliner and the enforcers are advancing. Enough games, she snaps. Take it from them. But as you stand there, bathed in the faint glow of the codex, your secret, your intuition, flares into something more. It is no longer a gut feeling. It is a form of sight. The codex has amplified it, refined it, given it focus. You look at Thuron and see the withered husk of his idealism, the fear that drives his betrayal. You look at the enforcers and see their simple, brutal loyalty, bought and paid for. And then you look at Aliner Forgeborn, and you see everything. The curtain is ripped away. The intuition, supercharged by the codex, doesn't just show you her intentions, it shows you the source of those intentions. The entire narrative she has built, the one you've been fighting against, is a lie. The resource crisis, the fracturing supply lines, the conflict one that threatens to consume Ethelberg. It isn't a naturally occurring disaster. It wasn't an accident. She is not reacting to crisis. She is the crisis. You see it in a flash of absolute, undeniable certainty. Her past as a logistical prodigy, her access to the off-world shipping networks, a series of small, surgical sabotages, a diverted shipment here, a falsified quarantine order there. She didn't just take advantage of a crisis to implement her new world order. She orchestrated the entire thing from the very beginning. She created the disease so she could sell the city her poison as a cure. Her goal was never to fulfill quotas. It was to seize power by manufacturing the very scarcity she claimed to be fighting. The realization is so profound, so monstrous, that you stagger back a step. The entire conflict, the central misunderstanding, was a fabrication. She wasn't a well-intentioned extremist. She was a tyrant in waiting. It was you whisper, the words barely audible. The sound of your own voice seems to come from a great distance. Alina pauses, her brow furrowing in confusion. What are you babbling about? You lift your head, and your eyes meet hers. For the first time, she sees something in your expression that gives her pause. It is not fear. It is not defiance. It is the cold, unwavering certainty of judgment. The resource crisis, you say, your voice growing stronger, imbued with the resonant power of the codex still humming through you. The failing supply lines, the knife's edge you're so desperate to save us from. It was all you. You engineered it, all of it. For the first time since you met her, Alina Forgeborn's mask of cool composure shatters. A flicker of pure, unadulterated shock flashes in her eyes, followed instantly by a cold, murderous fury. You have not just accused her, you have seen her. You have spoken her one true secret. Kill them, she snarls to the enforcers, her voice losing its crisp precision, becoming raw and ragged. Kill them now, but it is too late. The hesitation was all you needed. With the foundational logic of the codex flowing through you, you see the flaw in their attack before it even begins. You see the geometry of the room, the trajectory of the kinetic bolts, the weakness in the enforcer's stance. You don't fight them, you use the truth. The Cascadia protocol is active, you announce, your voice ringing with an authority you did not possess moments before. Alina Forgeborn's master plan. She built the fire, and now she's going to burn the city down and blame it on us. You look directly at the enforcers, your families in the lower sectors, the power grids that keep their air breathable. She's about to turn them off, all to consolidate her own power. You are gambling that they are not zealots, but hired guns with lives and families in the city they are helping to subvert. The Codex tells you it is a sound premise. One of the enforcers hesitates, his rifle wavering. That's all it takes. Alina, seeing her control slipping, draws her own sidearm, a sleek, high-capacity plasma projector. She doesn't aim at you. She aims at the wavering enforcer. Loyalty is a resource, she hisses. Those who lack it are liabilities. She fires. But in the same instant, a dark, chitinous shape drops from the ceiling. Valor. He slams into Alina, all four of his powerful limbs wrapping around her, deflecting her aim. The plasma bolt goes wide, scorching a black streak across the chamber's pristine white wall. The second enforcer, seeing his partner saved and his employer turn on her own, makes his choice. He swings the butt of his rifle, catching Thuron across the back of the head. The old archivist crumples to the ground, unconscious. The first enforcer, his decision made, turns his weapon on Alina, who is now locked in a desperate struggle with Valor. It's over, Requisitioner, he yells. But she is not finished. With a surge of strength, she activates a kinetic pulse generator on her belt. A wave of pure force erupts from her, blasting Valor back. He hits the far wall with a sickening crack of chitin. Aliner, free for a moment, scrambles for the Aegis Codex. This is the final confrontation. Not for the city, not for the law, but for this single, powerful object. You meet her at the pedestal. She lunges, not with a weapon, but with a raw, desperate physical fury. You are not a fighter, but the Codex has given you an understanding of leverage, of balance, of momentum. You don't meet her force, you redirect it. You use her own lunge to spin her around, sending her stumbling past the pedestal. She recovers, her face a mask of hate, and draws a wicked-looking blade from her boot. She comes at you again, but your mind is now a razor. You hold the Codex aloft in one hand. You are not just defending yourself, you are defending the very concept of justice. Your foundation is a lie, Aliner, you shout, your voice echoing in the perfect sphere. And any structure built on a lie is doomed to collapse. You don't need to feed your discovery into the Lex Machina. You have a better idea. The Codex is its source code. Valor had said the chamber was a blind spot, shielded from surveillance. But that shielding had to have an interface, a way to be turned on and off. And Thuron, the master of the archives, must have controlled it. While Aliner is momentarily thrown off balance, you slam your free hand onto the side of the pedestal. Your fingers find a hidden seam, a control interface. Guided by the logic flowing from the book, you enter a command. You are not transmitting data. You are opening a direct, foundational link. You are letting the Lex Machina see for the first time in millennia, letting it look upon its own source code, and you are holding the book open to the page that defines deceit. A powerful hum fills the chamber. The milky white walls begin to glow with a soft blue light. The Lex Machina is here. It is aware, and it is reading. It reads the foundational truth from the Codex. And then it turns its new, enlightened gaze upon Aliner Forgeborn. It sees the lies she has built, the crisis she has manufactured. It sees the truth you revealed. It reevaluates everything, not based on the flawed data it has been fed for years, but on the pure, unassailable principles of the Aegis. Aliner freezes, a look of horror dawning on her face as she feels the omnipresent gaze of the city's intelligence upon her, no longer as a tool, but as a judge. Citizen Eleanor, Forgborn. A voice booms, seeming to come from the very air of the chamber. It is the voice of the Lex Machina, but it is different now, deeper, resonant with an ancient authority. You are found guilty of sedition, of mass endangerment, of perjury against the foundational principles of this society. The judgment is absolute. Aliner screams, a sound of pure terror, as unseen energies envelop her. Her kinetic generator overloads, her plasma weapon melts in her hand. She is encased in a field of hard light, frozen in place like a fly in amber. The sentence has been passed and carried out. The unwritten accords, without their architect and their enforcer, begin to unravel across the city in a cascade of logic failures and nullified contracts. The light in the chamber fades. The voice falls silent. It is over. The enforcers stand in stunned silence. Valor pushes himself up, one of his arms hanging at an unnatural angle, but he is alive. Thuron lies unconscious on the floor, a pathetic, broken old man. You close the Aegis Codex. The immense weight of its knowledge recedes, leaving your own mind feeling quiet and clear. You have won. In the weeks that follow, Ethelberg heals. The Lex Machina, its perspective forever altered by its brief glimpse of the Codex, begins a systematic purge of the corruption. The guilds are dismantled, their assets seized and redistributed. The truth of Aliner's manufactured crisis is laid bare for all to see. There is confusion and a measure of chaos, but it is the chaos of a fever breaking, not of a body dying. Thuron is tried and sentenced to a quiet life of exile in a monitoring library, his name a byword for hubris. Valor's tendrils begin to heal. With the source of the poison eliminated, the golden light of his network spreads once more through the city's foundations, vibrant and strong. He and his people are safe. Your bond, forged in darkness and betrayal, is now unbreakable. You stand once more in the sanctorum of precedent. The great beam of light still illuminates the motes of dust in their endless dance. The silence is still here, but it no longer feels oppressive. It feels peaceful. You have unraveled the mystery of Thornbrook Manor, bringing clarity to the enigmatic occurrences that nearly tore your city apart. Your journey is complete. You take the Aegis Codex, the heavy tome that feels like the anchor of the world, and carry it back down to the spherical chamber in the Bramblewood. You place it back on its pedestal and use your new understanding to seal the chamber once more, rendering it invisible to all. Such power, you now know, is not meant to be wielded. It is meant to be a reminder, a silent, incorruptible heart. Returning to the surface, you look out from a high window in the archives. The city of Ethelberg sprawls before you, its spires catching the light of the setting sun. It is not a perfect city. It never will be, but the rot has been cut out. Its foundation is sound once more. You have changed, too. The stubborn archivist is gone, replaced by someone who understands that justice is not found in the letter of the law, but in the spirit of truth. Your intuition is no longer a secret, but a sharpened, trusted tool. You do not know what new challenges the future holds. But as you watch the lights of the city begin to glow, a vast and complex network of lives and dreams, you feel a sense of peace. The scales have been balanced. The silence of the archives is no longer the silence of secrets and forgotten crimes. It is the silence of a story that has found its proper and just end.